She pressed her palm against the window, the glass trembling with the weight of the storm outside. Thunder cracked like artillery in the distance. Rain smeared across her vision, warping the lights of the base into blurred streaks. But the storm beyond the wire was what kept her awake. It was the one inside. She hadn't told anyone, not her commanding officer, not the medic she trusted, not even Rivera, who always noticed when something was wrong. She had buried it down deep where the silence lived. Yet tonight, with the storm raging, the silence pressed harder than the rain. They called her Martinez, just Martinez, rarely by her first name. Fewer still used her call sign Falcon. It wasn't affection, it was convenience. She learned that early. In the military, names carried weight only if you proved you could carry them. And though she had earned her place with precision, discipline, and grit, some still saw her as the quiet one, the one who didn't speak unless asked, the one they sometimes forgot was there. But they didn't know her storm. They didn't know what memory clawed at her every night. The farmhouse, the shouting, her little brother hiding under the table as boots crashed through the door. She hadn't been able to protect him then, not at 16, not when men with rifles took what they wanted. That night had branded her, and though the uniform gave her purpose, the battlefield inside her heart had never gone quiet. The knock at the door startled her. She straightened, hiding the weight on her shoulders. Sergeant Cole stood in the hallway, eyes sharp even in the dim light. Briefing, ops room, 10 minutes. His tone left no space for hesitation. She nodded, but her chest tightened. Another mission, another night where the storm inside would have to stay hidden. When she entered the ops room, the chatter hushed. Maps spread across the table. A projector flickered with satellite images of a valley deep inside contested territory. Intelligence reports pinned to cork boards showed enemy movement, irregular, unpredictable, dangerous. The commander's voice was low but firm. "We're going in before dawn. High-value target. We've tracked him for months. Tonight, weather works in our favor. Enemy won't expect movement in this storm." Eyes shifted across the room. Soldiers leaned in. Adrenaline hummed beneath their silence. Martinez scanned the images. Something was off. The valley's ridgelines created blind zones. The storm would ground air support. If extraction was compromised, the team would be cut off. She felt it in her chest like the low roll of thunder, but she stayed quiet. She always stayed quiet. Until Rivera, sitting beside her, nudged her arm. "What do you see?" he whispered, not unkind. Her lips parted, hesitation coiling like smoke. She wanted to say it, that the valley was a trap waiting to snap shut. But the commander's eyes swept the table, demanding silence, and her voice locked in her throat. "Questions?" the commander asked, scanning the room. No one spoke, not Martinez, not Rivera. "Good," he said, "gear up." As the team dispersed, Rivera lingered. "You've got that look again," he said softly, "like you're holding something back." She forced a small smile, just the storm. But he didn't believe her. The hangar buzzed with movement. Soldiers checked weapons, tightened straps, sealed radios against the rain. Martinez sat on a crate, assembling her rifle with mechanical precision. Each click, each rotation of the bolt grounded her. The weapon was the only thing that listened without judgment. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the faces of the men and women she would fight beside. Each one carried their own storm. She could see it in their small gestures. The way Thompson kissed the rosary around his neck before tucking it beneath his vest. The way Evans scribbled a quick note and folded it into his pocket, a letter that might never be delivered. Martinez's hand slowed as she adjusted her scope. She wondered if anyone saw her storm. Probably not. She had become an expert at hiding it. The rain was relentless by the time they loaded into the convoy. Engines roared to life, muffled by the pounding water on steel. Martinez sat wedged between Rivera and Evans, her rifle across her lap, her heartbeat echoing louder than the storm. Evans tried to break the silence. "You ever think about what we'll be if we make it through all this?" "Alive," Rivera said flatly. Martinez didn't answer. She stared at the blurred world outside the windshield. Alive wasn't always the same as living. She knew that better than most. The convoy rattled forward into the night, deeper into enemy ground, deeper into the storm. But what she didn't know, not yet, was that this mission would test her silence more than any before. That before the night ended, she would be forced to choose, to keep carrying her storm alone or to let it out when lives depended on it. And when the choice came, it would break her open in ways she wasn't ready for. The convoy jolted hard as the wheels hit a rut, sending Martinez's shoulder into Rivera's. Neither of them spoke. Rain hammered against the metal roof, drowning out almost everything but the engine's strained growl. The storm outside was savage, yet it seemed quieter than what was building inside her chest. Why did her gut feel heavier than usual? She adjusted her grip on the rifle. The storm wasn't just weather, it was warning. Something was wrong. She felt it earlier in the briefing. The map etched into her mind, the valley ridgelines like jaws ready to close. But she hadn't said a word. And now, with every mile closer, silence burned sharper in her throat. The radio crackled. The commander's voice cut through static, 20 minutes out. Evans shifted beside her. His leg bounced nervously, the kind of tell that gave him away no matter how steady he tried to look. Martinez caught the flicker of his hand sliding to that folded note in his pocket again. He touched it briefly, like a prayer. Rivera noticed, too, you writing to her again. Evans exhaled through his nose. Maybe, just in case. His voice dropped. Doesn't hurt to leave something behind. Martinez felt the words strike her chest. Just in case. That had been her mother's phrase, whispered the night she left for boot camp. Mija, I put the picture of your brother in your bag, just in case you forget what you're fighting for. She hadn't forgotten. Not for a second. But sometimes remembering hurt worse than forgetting. The convoy slowed. Tires sloshed through thick mud. Through the rain-smeared windshield, shadows loomed, dark ridges rising out of the valley. Martinez's heart clenched. The terrain was exactly as she had feared. Steep, broken, unforgiving. Engines cut, doors opened. Cold rain swallowed them whole. The team moved quickly, boots sinking into soaked earth, their silhouettes fractured by flashes of lightning. Martinez pulled her hood tighter, the storm soaking through fabric in seconds. Every sound mattered now, the hiss of rainfall, the clink of metal, the uneven breathing under tension. They advanced on foot, rifles up, spread in formation. For minutes there was only storm and silence, then something else. A sound she couldn't quite place, a stutter in the rain's rhythm, too regular, too sharp. She froze, one knee pressed into the mud, listening. The others moved ahead. Rivera glanced back, raising his hand slightly as if to ask what she'd found. She shook her head once, slow. Her instincts screamed, but her voice stayed locked. Another lightning flash, and in that brief blaze of white she saw it. Glint metal high on the ridge, watching. Her stomach dropped, ambush. Contact ridge, she shouted, her voice breaking through the storm at last. The first crack of gunfire split the night. The ridge erupted, tracers cut through rain, streaking red. The valley exploded into chaos. Soldiers dove for cover, mud splashing high, voices shouting over the storm. Martinez threw herself behind a rock, rifle up, eyes scanning the ridgeline. Shadows moved against lightning, silhouettes firing down on them. The trap had snapped shut just as she feared. Rivera slid in beside her, breath ragged. Knew it, he muttered, pressing his shoulder into the rock. You saw this coming, didn't you? She didn't answer. Her silence was its own admission. She steadied her scope, heart hammering. The storm blurred everything, but she found one figure, steady, crouched, different from the rest. Leader. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, muffled by thunder. The figure collapsed. It bought them seconds, no more. Fall back, the commander's voice roared over the comms. Regroup south of the ridge. The team moved in bursts, firing, retreating, dragging one another through mud. Martinez covered Evans as he sprinted, bullets tearing mud inches from his boots. She fired again, each shot precise, buying him distance. Her chest ached, not from exertion but from guilt. She could have said something earlier, could have warned them, could have saved them from being caught in this storm of fire. A scream cut through the rain. Thompson. He went down hard, clutching his side, his rifle skidding away. Martinez's pulse spiked. She was closest. She moved without thinking. Mud sucked at her boots as she broke cover, sprinting into open fire. She slid beside him, grabbing his vest. Blood pulsed through his fingers. "I've got you," she shouted, her voice raw. "Go, leave me," he choked out, pain twisting his face. "Not happening," she snapped. She hooked her arm under his shoulder, dragging him toward cover. Bullets whipped past, sparks kicking off rock. Rivera covered her, his rifle barking nonstop. Every step was agony. Thompson was heavier than she expected, his weight dragging her down, mud sucking her deeper. Her heart pounded. For a moment she was 16 again, dragging her brother from the farmhouse, screaming his name, her hands slick with blood that wouldn't stop. Her throat burned. Not again, not this time. She hauled Thompson behind cover, collapsing against the rock, breath ragged. Rivera crouched low, slamming a new mag into his rifle. "You're out of your damn mind," he growled, but there was respect in his eyes. The medic rushed in, already tearing open a pack. Martinez pressed her hand over Thompson's wound, her fingers slippery, hot, alive. His eyes locked on hers, wide, scared, human. "Stay with me," she whispered. He tried to smile, blood on his teeth. "Storm's loud tonight." Her chest tightened. "Yeah, but you'll make it through." The medic shoved her aside gently, taking over. She sat back, hands trembling, mud and blood streaking her uniform. Gunfire slowed. The ridge went quiet. Either the enemy had fallen back or they were regrouping for something worse. The commander's voice cut through the comms again. "Rally at the fallback point, now." They moved quickly, carrying Thompson between them, slipping and stumbling through the storm. Martinez's arms burned, her lungs seared, but the guilt burned worse. Rivera fell in beside her. His words were low, meant only for her. "Next time, don't wait to speak." She looked at him, rain streaming down her face, and for a moment she had no words, only silence. But inside, the storm raged louder than ever. Because he was right, and she knew this wasn't over, not the mission, not her silence, not the battlefield inside her heart. And the next time the storm demanded her voice, it would cost her more than she was ready to give. Mud clung to her boots like chains, each step heavier than the last. The fallback point was nothing more than a cluster of rocks at the base of the ridge, barely enough cover to shield them from another barrage. The storm poured over them in sheets, relentless, cold, washing blood into the earth. Martinez dropped to her knees, rifle across her lap, chest heaving. Thompson lay nearby, the medic working fast under a poncho to shield his hands from the rain. Martinez wanted to watch, to be sure the man she dragged through hell was still breathing, but her eyes kept flicking back to the ridge. Dark, jagged, silent. Silence was never safety. "Martinez," Rivera crouched beside her, rain dripping from his helmet. "You okay?" She nodded too fast. "Fine." "Liar." His voice was low, calm, but edged with truth. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Words meant admitting she'd seen it coming, admitting her silence had nearly killed them all. The commander's voice broke through. "We hold here 10 minutes, then move. Objective still ahead. We don't stop." His eyes swept over them, hard, unyielding. But when they landed on Thompson, the steel cracked just slightly. Martinez caught it, the weight he carried for every life under his command. Rivera leaned closer. "You saved him, don't forget that." But the storm inside her heart spat back. "You almost didn't." The squad huddled under the storm, weapons ready, nerves raw. Evans tried to joke, voice shaky. "Well, so much for surprise." No one laughed. He rubbed the folded paper in his pocket again. She wondered what he'd written. She wondered if his words were easier than hers if they came without the weight of silence. Another flash of lightning tore across the valley, painting the world in stark white for a heartbeat. Martinez's gut twisted again. She could almost feel eyes on them, watching, waiting. And then movement. Shadows on the ridge slipping away into the storm. Retreat. Or regrouping. Martinez's breath caught. Should she say it? Should she voice what her instincts screamed, that this wasn't over, that they were walking deeper into a net? Her throat closed. The commander made the call. On your feet, we move. The squad rose, exhausted but obedient. Mud sucked at their boots as they pushed forward, the valley narrowing around them. Every sense sharpened. Martinez felt the rain on her eyelashes, the burn in her thighs, the weight of her rifle balanced just so. But louder than all of it was the silence she carried. Minutes stretched into hours, though it couldn't have been more than 30. Every step deeper made the air feel heavier. The storm blurred sound, but within it she caught fragments. The metallic click of a bolt, the faint grind of boots on wet stone. Or maybe it was her mind, conjuring ghosts in the storm. Then Rivera broke the silence. "Tell me something," he said quietly, just for her. She frowned. "What?" "Anything, doesn't matter what, just something." She shook her head. "Now's not the time." "It's exactly the time," he countered, eyes forward. "You keep all this locked up like you're a machine, but you're not, you're human, same as the rest of us." Her jaw clenched. Words fought to escape, but before she could answer, the world shifted. An explosion ripped the ground ahead. Fire roared into the storm, dirt and mud spraying high. The shockwave threw Martinez to the ground, her ears ringing, heart slamming against her ribs. "Mine!" Screams. Evans lay twisted, his leg mangled, blood already soaking the mud. Martinez crawled to him, instincts firing faster than thought. She pressed both hands against the wound, rain and blood mixing in a brutal wash. Evans's eyes locked on hers, wide, panicked. Don't let me." "You won't," she said, her voice a knife through the storm. "Stay with me." The medic scrambled in, dropping to his knees, ripping open his kit. Tourniquet. Martinez's hands didn't leave Evans's leg. She pressed down harder, her own breath ragged. Rivera crouched behind them, rifle aimed at the ridge, eyes scanning. "We're sitting ducks here." "Hold him," the medic snapped. "Don't let go." Evans's grip tightened around Martinez's wrist, desperate, trembling. She leaned close, her voice softer, raw. "You've got that letter in your pocket, right? You're gonna deliver it yourself. Hear me." His breath hitched, eyes blurring. "Promise." She swallowed hard. "Promise." The medic wrenched the tourniquet tight. Evans screamed, then went limp, but the bleeding slowed. He was alive for now. The commander barked orders, pulling the squad into defensive positions. Martinez stayed on her knees, rain soaking through, Evans's blood on her hands. Her chest heaved. The guilt swelled again, crushing. Another trap. Another storm she hadn't voiced. Rivera touched her shoulder firm. "Hey, he's alive because of you." But her storm wouldn't listen. Because deep down she knew, this valley wasn't chance. The ambush, the mine, the way the enemy moved, it was all deliberate. Someone wanted them funneled here. Someone had planned this. And if she stayed silent again, more would fall. But the thought of speaking, of breaking that silence in front of all of them, felt heavier than any weapon she'd ever carried. She stared at Evans, unconscious now, rain dripping from his face. The folded paper in his pocket pressed against his chest. She wondered what he had written, and whether she had the strength to write her own truth before it was too late. The squad pushed forward again, dragging Evans on a stretcher improvised from their ponchos. Martinez stayed near him, rifle ready, heart divided between the storm outside and the one within. Every flash of lightning lit the valley like a stage, and in every shadow she saw echoes of the farmhouse, her brother's frightened eyes, the moment she failed him. Not again. Not this time. But the question haunted her with every step. When the storm demanded her voice again, would she be strong enough to give it? The valley narrowed, its walls closing like the jaws of a beast. Rain carved streams down the rock, each rivulet gleaming under the pulse of lightning. The squad trudged through mud, shoulders bent beneath weight heavier than gear. Evans lay strapped to the poncho stretcher, face pale, breath shallow. Thompson leaned against Rivera for support, the medic hovering close. Every one of them carried blood now, visible or hidden. Martinez walked at the rear, rifle angled, eyes scanning shadows. But her thoughts drifted. Every step stirred ghosts. Her brother's voice came back first, high, young, trembling. "Will you keep me safe?" He had asked her that the night soldiers came to their farmhouse. She had answered without hesitation, yes. And then, minutes later, she had failed. The memory clawed at her as hard as the rain. His face under the table, the crash of boots through the door. Her body frozen in fear until it was too late. Silence had stolen him, and ever since, silence had been her prison. Rivera's voice cut into the storm. "You've gone quiet again." She almost laughed, bitter, hollow. "When am I not?" He glanced back at her, eyes sharp. "That's the problem." The words landed heavy. She wanted to defend herself, to say silence was survival, silence was control, silence was the only way she kept the storm from breaking her. But her mouth stayed shut, as always. The commander signaled a halt. They ducked under a jagged overhang, a pocket of shadow that offered a brief reprieve from the rain. The medic checked Evans's vitals, muttering under his breath. Thompson drank water in slow sips, face pale but determined. Martinez sat with her back to the stone, rifle across her knees. The storm roared outside, a relentless curtain. But in this pocket of stillness, the silence pressed louder. Evans stirred, half-conscious. His lips moved. Martinez leaned close, straining to hear over the rain. "Read it if I do." His voice was a rasp, words broken by pain. His hand twitched toward his pocket. Martinez froze, the folded paper, the letter. Rivera crouched beside her. "He wants you to." Her throat tightened. "It's not my place." "Maybe it is," Rivera said. "Maybe he trusts you more than you think." She stared at Evans's trembling hand, then at the pocket where the letter lay. She wanted to reach for it, to open it, to see what someone else had the courage to write while she carried only silence. But her hand wouldn't move. Instead, she whispered, "You'll deliver it yourself. That's the deal." Evans gave a faint smile, then drifted back into unconsciousness. The storm outside seemed to ease, rain thinning, thunder rolling farther away. But inside her chest, the storm only swelled. The commander's voice pulled them back. "We move in 5, no matter what, target's not far." Martinez's stomach knotted. The target, that word again. As if capturing one man could balance the blood already spilled. She wondered if anyone else felt the same doubt gnawing at them. Thompson broke the silence. "You think this guy's worth it, after tonight?" No one answered, not even the commander. Martinez looked at him, saw the fear in his eyes masked by stubborn pride. She wanted to say what she felt, that no man was worth this much, that some missions took more than they gave back. But her lips pressed shut. Instead, Rivera spoke. "We don't get to choose worth, we just do the job." The commander gave a curt nod, as if to end the debate. When they rose to move again, Martinez lingered for a heartbeat under the rock. She closed her eyes, rain dripping from her lashes, and breathed. She wanted to scream, to let the storm inside her chest tear free, but she swallowed it down, like always. The path ahead grew steeper, rocks slick, mud treacherous. They climbed in silence, every grunt of effort swallowed by the storm. Lightning painted the valley, and with each flash, Martinez thought she saw figures at the edge of vision, shadows vanishing before she could aim. By the time they reached the plateau, exhaustion dragged at their bodies. The commander signaled a perimeter. They crouched low, rifles ready, breaths fogging in the chill. Martinez lay prone, scope sweeping the ridgeline. The world blurred through rain and glass. Nothing moved, but her gut screamed otherwise. Rivera slid down beside her, his voice barely above the storm. "Talk to me, Falcon. What do you see?" She hesitated. The word trap sat heavy on her tongue, sharp as broken glass. Saying it meant claiming it. Saying it meant admitting she'd stayed silent before when it mattered most. Her heartbeat pounded. But before she could answer, the radio hissed. The commander's voice was clipped tight. "Eyes open. Intel just confirmed target on the move, and he's closer than we thought." Every rifle tightened in grip, every muscle coiled. Martinez exhaled slowly, her finger brushing the trigger. The storm outside had quieted, but inside her, the battlefield roared louder than ever. Because she knew, deep down, this night wasn't about the man they hunted. It was about the silence she carried. And before the dawn broke, that silence would either save them all or destroy them. The plateau stretched before them like the back of some sleeping beast, uneven and scarred. Rain had thinned to a cold drizzle, the kind that seeped through fabric, through skin, until it felt like it reached bone. The storm hadn't ended. It was just waiting. Martinez lay prone in the mud, her eye pressed to the scope. The ridgeline glowed faint under the weak light of the moon breaking through cloud. Her breath fogged the glass, steady but too loud in her own ears. "Shadows, always shadows." "Anything?" Rivera whispered beside her. She shook her head once small, but her gut churned. Something was wrong. Again. She pressed her lips together, the word heavy inside her chest. Trap. She could feel it. Every muscle in her body screamed it. But saying it meant admitting she'd known before, when the valley had nearly swallowed them whole. The commander's voice whispered through the comms. "Targets moving in this direction. Stay sharp." Martinez closed her eyes for a second, rain dripping down her face. The silence inside her chest was louder than the storm. She opened them again and froze. Movement low, swift, not one figure, several. Her heart jolted, left ridge multiple. It came out sharper than she expected, almost desperate. Rivera swung his rifle instantly, trusting her eyes. "I see 'em." The commander's voice tightened. "Hold, identify." The figures slipped closer, barely visible between rock and rain. Martinez steadied her scope, her breath held. Then lightning split the sky. For a heartbeat she saw them clear, armed, coordinated, their eyes locked on the plateau. Not scouts, not wanderers, a strike team. "Enemy moving fast," she shouted. Gunfire erupted. The plateau exploded into chaos. Bullets sparked against rock, mud spraying, soldiers diving for cover. Martinez's rifle bucked into her shoulder, her shots sharp, precise, each one carving seconds of survival. Rivera shouted into the comms, voice raw. "Contact left, they're pushing hard." The enemy surged, shadows in the storm, their fire disciplined, driving the squad back step by step. Evans stirred on the stretcher, groaning, his eyes fluttering. The medic tried to shield him with his body, firing bursts over his shoulder. Thompson gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright despite his wound, his rifle trembling in his hands. "Stay down," Martinez barked, but he ignored her, firing into the dark with stubborn pride. The commander's voice cut through the storm. "Martinez, Rivera, anchor left, hold them off." They moved as one, sliding into better cover, rifles steady. Martinez found another shadow in her scope, one carrying something heavier, longer. Rocket tube. Her chest seized. "Launcher, take him," she shouted. Her shot cracked. The figure dropped, the weapon tumbling into mud. But another man grabbed it instantly, lifting it to his shoulder. Rivera's voice snapped. "Martinez." She didn't hesitate, breath, squeeze, recoil. The second man fell. The rocket tube hit the ground useless. For a moment the line held. The squad's fire drove the attackers back into the storm. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of drizzle on stone. But it wasn't over. Martinez could feel it in her bones. The enemy wasn't retreating. They were waiting, shaping, hurting. The commander's voice came low, grim. "They're not trying to break us here. They're driving us somewhere." Martinez's chest tightened. She'd known it. She felt it since the valley. The whole mission was a funnel. Her silence burned like acid. She pressed her forehead to the mud for a moment, rain chilling her skin. She wanted to scream, to tell them all she had seen this, felt this, carried this storm for hours and said nothing. But there was no time. "Move," the commander ordered, "before they close the trap." The squad scrambled, dragging Evans, steadying Thompson, climbing higher into the plateau. Martinez covered their flank, rifle snapping with precision. Rivera stayed beside her, his voice low even in chaos. "You spoke that time," he said. She didn't answer, breath tight. "You saved us," he added. Her jaw clenched. The storm inside her roared, "Not enough, never enough." They reached a cluster of ruins, old stone walls half-eaten by time, black against the night. The commander waved them inside. "Hold here, reset, targets still ahead." Inside the ruins, the air was colder, darker. The storm above echoed through broken walls, each drop of rain amplified like a drum. The squad huddled close, weapons reloaded, eyes hollow. Thompson slumped against stone, sweat mixing with rain. He muttered through clenched teeth, "How many more times are we gonna walk into this?" No one answered. Martinez's hands trembled as she cleaned her scope, mud streaking across her fingers. She thought of her brother again. The night boots crashed through their farmhouse. She had promised him safety and failed. She had promised herself she'd never be silent again, and failed. Her chest ached with the weight of every broken promise. Rivera sat across from her, eyes never leaving her face. He said nothing this time, just watched, waiting. The commander studied his map, jaw set hard. Targets near. Intel puts him within the next ridge. We push at first light. First light, hours away. Martinez leaned her head back against cold stone, closing her eyes. Exhaustion pressed heavy, but sleep wouldn't come. Inside her chest, the storm clawed. And somewhere out there, beyond the rain and shadows, a man moved. One man the world had deemed worth all this blood. Her silence asked the question she couldn't voice aloud. Was he worth it? She didn't know, not yet. But by dawn she would. The ruins whispered with the weight of centuries. Every gust of wind carried sand into the cracks of the broken walls, and the rain left streaks of silver down stone, once carved by hands that no longer existed. The squad huddled in the shadow of history, their present blood staining the past. Martinez sat in the corner, her rifle across her lap, her body still and rigid. To anyone else she looked composed, a soldier at rest between battles, but inside she was breaking. The silence gnawed at her like teeth. She had spoken once. It had saved them. Rivera was right. And yet it had also confirmed what she feared most. She had known before. She had known in the valley. She had known when Evans fell, when Thompson bled, when the storm had almost swallowed them whole. And she had said nothing. Her throat burned with the words she still couldn't release. "I should have warned you. I should have told you. I saw it coming and I buried it." But the words stayed locked behind her lips, caged by pride, by fear, by the memory of her brother's eyes the night she failed him. The commander crouched over the map spread on a flat stone. His voice was low but sharp, the sound of a man cutting through fog with nothing but stubborn will. "Targets camped in the next ridge," he said. "Intel places him with a small guard detail. If we move at dawn, we hit them before they relocate." The medic wiped blood from his hands and snapped. "And what about Evans? He won't last another mile if we push him uphill." Evans groaned on the stretcher, pale, sweat shining in the dim light. Thompson, leaning against the wall, barked a laugh that wasn't a laugh. "What about any of us? You think we've got another ridge in us?" The commander's jaw flexed. "Orders are clear, we take the target." The silence that followed was different from Martinez's silence. This one was shared, heavy, pressing on every chest in the ruin. Rivera finally broke it. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath. "Sir, with respect, we're bleeding out here. The enemy knows exactly where we are. We keep moving, we're not just risking the mission. We're gambling lives." The commander's eyes flicked up, cold, unyielding. "You questioning me, Sergeant?" Rivera didn't flinch. "I'm telling you the truth, sir." Martinez's stomach knotted. Rivera was saying the words she should have spoken long ago, the ones burning her chest raw. Her silence became suffocating. The commander turned away, tracing the map with a finger, his decision already made. "We move at dawn." The squad fell into grim quiet. Some adjusted gear, others stared at the floor, their thoughts too heavy for words. Martinez lowered her gaze, her reflection in the rifle's wet steel twisting under the flicker of lightning outside. She wanted to speak. She wanted to tell them all that she had seen this trap from the start, that every drop of blood spilled since the valley was on her hands. She wanted to free herself from the storm clawing her chest. But the words stayed trapped. "If I speak now, will they hate me? Will they see me as the reason Evans may die, the reason Thompson bleeds, the reason this mission is crumbling?" Her brother's voice echoed in memory. "Why didn't you say anything, Sarah?" She flinched as though struck. Rivera noticed. He always noticed. He leaned closer, his whisper soft enough for only her to hear. "What is it you're holding back, Martinez?" Her jaw clenched, she shook her head. "Nothing." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. But his eyes told her he didn't believe her. The hours crawled. The rain eased, then returned, a rhythm without mercy. Thompson drifted into feverish muttering, the medic pressing cloth to his wound. Evans whimpered, whispering for water. The commander stayed fixed on his map like it was scripture. Martinez sat motionless, her silence pressing harder, her ribs aching with the weight of it. And then the enemy came back. It began with a sound barely audible beneath the rain. Boots on stone, a scrape of metal. The squad stiffened instantly, rifles up. Martinez's heart pounded. She peered through a gap in the ruined wall, her scope cutting through shadow. Figures, dozens, moving in formation, encircling the ruins. Her throat tightened. "They're not waiting for dawn, they're here." Her silence screamed. Rivera's whisper hissed, "You see it too, don't you?" She nodded once. Her lips parted. This was the moment, the one where her silence could kill them all if she held it. Her chest shook, her mouth opened, but no sound came. Rivera cursed, raising his rifle. Contact. Gunfire shattered the ruin. Bullets sparked off stone, tracer fire slicing the dark. The squad scrambled, firing blind into the storm. The medic dragged Evans deeper into cover, Thompson gritting his teeth as he tried to fight despite his wound. The commander bellowed orders, his voice swallowed by the roar of battle. Martinez's rifle snapped to her shoulder, scope finding targets, every shot deliberate, deadly. She dropped one shadow, then another, her precision the only calm in the chaos. But still inside her chest, the silence screamed louder. If she had spoken earlier, warned them, maybe they could have fortified. Maybe Evans wouldn't be inches from death. Maybe Thompson wouldn't be bleeding into the stone of forgotten men. Her storm boiled. Her promise to her brother seared her lungs. She fired, reloaded, fired again, until her voice finally tore free. "They're hurting us again," she shouted, her cry cutting through the storm. Every head turned. "They're not here to crush us, they're driving us higher into the ridge, into the kill zone." Her voice shook but carried. "I saw it before. I stayed silent. That's why Evans is down, why Thompson." She stopped, breath breaking. "If we keep moving the way they want, none of us walk out." The ruin seemed to still for a second, even with bullets raining. The commander's eyes burned into her, hard and searching. "And you waited until now to tell us." Her silence finally shattered. Her voice cracked, raw, trembling. Because last time I spoke, no one listened, and when I stayed quiet, he died. Her brother's memory echoed with the words, filling the ruin. The squad stared. The battle still raged, but for the first time, Martinez's storm was no longer caged. Rivera's voice cut in, firm, resolute. She's right. We fight them here on our terms, or we don't fight at all. The commander hesitated, the weight of command heavy in his stare. Then slowly he nodded. "Hold the ruins," he ordered. The squad braced, the ruins turning into their fortress. Martinez's rifle barked, her silence gone, her storm unleashed. And as dawn's first light began to creep over the horizon, the enemy pressed harder, shadows flooding against stone. The squad fought with everything left in them, and Martinez, for the first time, fought not just with her rifle but with her voice. The sky cracked with the first light of dawn. Pale blue seeped across the jagged horizon, washing the ruins in cold light. The night's storm had passed, but its echo remained, the earth soaked, the air sharp with the smell of rain and cordite, and the squad fighting for every second they could steal. The enemy kept coming, shadows against the light, figures darting between broken pillars, rifles spitting fire, voices shouting in a language the squad didn't understand. Martinez's rifle sang, controlled bursts, each shot cutting clean, deliberate, stripping away the enemy's momentum. The recoil bruised her shoulder, her breath steady despite the firestorm. For the first time, her silence was gone, replaced by clear, sharp commands. "Two on the left wall, take them now. Evans, keep your head down. Medic, drag him deeper, don't expose yourself." And the squad listened. It was strange, almost unreal. Hours ago, her silence had been a wound that bled them dry. Now her voice carried like steel through smoke. But the weight of her confession still pressed. Every shot she fired reminded her that this chaos, was because she had stayed quiet when it mattered most. The ghosts of what-ifs followed her through the haze. The commander crouched behind the crumbled wall, barking into his radio. His face was stone, but the cracks were there. Hair damp, jaw tight, his eyes betraying something Martinez had never seen in him before: doubt. He caught her stare between volleys. "You'd better be right about this." Her chest tightened, she didn't look away. "I am." The silence between them said what neither dared admit. It was her call now. Rivera slammed a fresh mag into his rifle, firing bursts toward the ridge. "We're running low on ammo," he shouted. The medic swore, hands red with Evans's blood, "and running out of time." Evans groaned, whispering words that were half coherent. Don't let me die here." Martinez's gut twisted. She wanted to promise him something, anything, but all she could give was fire, and silence turned voice. The enemy surged, grenades arcing through the air. One clattered against stone, rolling into their haven. Grenade! Martinez dove without thinking, her hand snatching the cylinder, hurling it back out before it detonated midair. The blast rattled the ruins, dust raining down, ears ringing. She staggered, but her rifle stayed up. Rivera's grin was grim. "You finally learned how to speak, Martinez." She gave no reply, but inside something shifted. His words weren't mockery, they were belief. The minutes dragged like hours. Their defense was desperate, but it held. Each wall of the ruins became a shield, every shadow a killing ground. Martinez moved like a ghost, rifle snapping between targets, guiding the squad through every wave. But the enemy wasn't reckless. They pressed with precision, hurting just as she'd said. And then the fire slowed, sporadic shots, then silence. The squad froze, breath ragged, bodies trembling from exhaustion and adrenaline. Rivera scanned the ridge. "They're pulling back." "No," Martinez whispered, her scope sweeping the horizon. "They're waiting." The commander's eyes narrowed. "For what?" She saw it then. Movement on the ridge. Not the faceless swarm they'd fought, but a figure distinct, deliberate, flanked by guards. Her stomach dropped. "The target," she said. The squad followed her gaze. The man stood tall, dark coat brushing the wind, his silhouette cutting sharp against dawn. A presence. He didn't shout, didn't fire. He only raised his arm and the enemy shifted in response, waiting for his signal. The commander's radio crackled static. No reinforcements, no extraction, just dead air. They were alone. Martinez's heart pounded. This was the moment, the ridge, the trap, the culmination of every silence and every word. Rivera muttered, "They're gonna crush us." The commander's jaw tightened. He turned to the squad, his voice stripped of pretense. "This is it. We hold or we fall." Martinez met his stare, her own voice steady. "No, we don't hold, we break them." The squad looked at her, disbelief flickering with something else. Hope, fragile but alive. She lifted her rifle, breath sharp. "We don't wait for them to crush us. We hit him now." The commander's eyes locked on hers, the weight of command and survival colliding. He hesitated, just a second. Then he nodded. "Martinez, take the shot." Time slowed. The ridge blurred into her scope. The target's face sharpened, pale in the rising light. Calm, confident, certain of their doom. Her breath stilled. One squeeze, one trigger pull. The rifle cracked. The target's head snapped back. His body collapsed, lifeless on the ridge. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. The squad froze, every soul suspended in disbelief. Then chaos erupted. The enemy screamed, their formation shattering. Some charged blindly, others fell back, panic rippling like fire through dry grass. Martinez reloaded, her voice sharp. "Now press them." The squad surged, broken but unbroken. Rivera's rifle thundered, the commander firing beside him, the medic grabbing a weapon with bloodied hands. Even Evans, half conscious, gripped his pistol weakly, as if refusing to surrender his last breath. The ruins became their battlefield, their stand, their redemption. Martinez moved with clarity she'd never known. Her shots were rhythm, her commands precise. And for the first time, the storm inside her didn't rage against her chest. It poured outward into action, into voice, into survival. The enemy, leaderless, faltered. Bodies scattered across the ridge, their will broken. The last of them fled into the shadows, their cries fading into the dawn. And then silence. Real silence. The kind that wasn't suffocating, the kind that wasn't storm. The squad slumped against the walls, gasping, broken, alive. The commander dropped beside Martinez, his rifle limp across his knees. His voice was rough, stripped of authority. "You saved us." Her hands shook as she lowered her rifle. She didn't feel like she'd saved anyone. She felt hollow, cracked, bleeding inside. But she nodded once, unable to speak. Rivera clapped her shoulder, a rare smile flickering. "Guess silence isn't always golden, huh?" She almost laughed, almost, but the weight of her brother's memory held her still. The medic checked Evans, his voice urgent but steadier. "He's alive, barely, but alive." The squad let out a collective breath. Martinez leaned back against the stone, eyes lifting to the sky. The storm had passed, the sun rising slow, painting the ruins in light. For the first time, she let herself feel it, not victory, not pride, just the fragile relief of survival. But she knew this wasn't the end. The storm inside her wasn't gone. It was only quieter, waiting. Because survival was never the finish line. It was only the space between battles. And hers was far from over. The sun had fully risen by the time the gunfire faded. The ruins stood scarred and quiet, smoke curling from shattered stone, the earth littered with the evidence of what had just unfolded. The kind of silence that followed was not peace. It was exhaustion, grief, and the unsteady rhythm of men and women who had survived when survival seemed impossible. Martinez leaned against the wall, her rifle finally lowered, her breath ragged. Her hands shook, not from the cold, not from recoil, but from the storm that had raged inside her all night and the knowledge that it would never fully leave. The commander sat nearby, his head bowed, helmet on the ground. The weight of decisions carved lines into his face that hadn't been there the day before. For the first time since she had known him, he didn't look like a commander. He looked like a man carrying too much. Evans lay on the stretcher, pale but alive, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The medic's hands moved with weary precision, each gesture a refusal to surrender him to the silence that had claimed too many already. Thompson dozed in the corner, wound bound tight, his face slack with the fragile mercy of unconsciousness. Rivera sat by the doorway, rifle across his knees, eyes scanning the horizon as if daring the enemy to return. The squad was still here, torn, battered, but here. Martinez closed her eyes. Behind her eyelids she saw her brother again. That night, his voice, the plea she had ignored, the silence that had killed him. But this time something was different. His eyes weren't full of accusation. They were just eyes, memory, weight, the kind that could not be erased but maybe, just maybe, could be carried. Rivera's voice broke the stillness. Low, rough, never seen anything like that. Leader drops, whole army breaks. The commander exhaled slowly, lifting his gaze. Power isn't just in bullets, sometimes it's in presence. He had theirs until Martinez took it away. The words cut through her. She wanted to reject them, to say it wasn't her, that it was luck, desperation, anything else. But she stayed silent, not the silence of fear this time, but of acceptance. Rivera glanced at her, a rare softness in his tone. Hell of a shot. She managed a faint nod. Her throat ached with words she couldn't form. Compliments didn't sit well when you knew what they'd cost. The medic shifted, his voice breaking with exhaustion. He'll make it, Evans, barely, but he'll make it. Relief washed through the squad like a fragile tide. Heads dropped, shoulders eased. For the first time, Martinez let her rifle slip from her hands. The weight left her palms, but it didn't leave her body. She had carried silence for so long it had become part of her bones. Speaking once, breaking it, that didn't erase it. It only changed its shape. Hours passed. No reinforcements came. No extraction team appeared. Just the slow creep of daylight across stone, the heavy press of time reminding them that survival was temporary. When the radio finally crackled to life, it was almost jarring. Static, then a voice. All units report. Repeat, all units report. The commander snatched it up, his voice steadier than his body. This is Alpha Team. Mission complete. Target neutralized. Casualties severe. Requesting immediate evac. Silence, then the voice returned. Copy Alpha. Hold position. Bird inbound. The commander lowered the radio, his expression unreadable. Relief, resentment, Martinez couldn't tell. Rivera chuckled dryly. Guess someone still remembers we exist. They waited. When the helicopters came, the sound rolled across the ruins like thunder. The squad staggered to their feet, broken bodies pulled toward the promise of escape. Martinez helped lift Evans, her hands steady under his stretcher. Thompson leaned on Rivera, the medic stumbling but determined to keep pace. The commander walked last, his eyes never leaving the ruins, as if imprinting them into memory. The rotors kicked up dust and ash, the wind stinging her eyes as the bird touched down. Soldiers poured out, their uniforms clean, their faces unscarred. They looked at Alpha Team with a mixture of awe and discomfort, like they were staring at ghosts who shouldn't have been alive. Hands reached to pull them in. Voices shouted orders drowned by the roar. Martinez climbed aboard last. She looked back one final time. The ruins stood in silence, their story carved now not just in stone but in memory. And then the helicopter lifted, carrying them away. The flight was quiet. No one spoke. The only sound was the thrum of the blades and the hollow rasp of lungs pulling in survival. Martinez stared out the window. The ridge shrank below, the storm clouds breaking apart, sunlight spilling across land scarred by war. She thought of the storm, the one outside, the one inside. It had passed, yes, but storms always returned. Rivera broke the silence, his voice barely audible over the hum. "You gonna stay quiet again, or you gonna keep talking?" She turned to him, her face unreadable. Then she gave a small, tired smile. "Depends," she said softly. "Sometimes silence saves more than words." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. No argument, no judgment, just understanding. The commander shifted in his seat, his voice hoarse. "You spoke when it mattered. That's more than most can say." Her throat tightened. She didn't reply. The helicopter pushed toward base, the horizon opening ahead. Martinez leaned back, eyes heavy, the weight of the night pressing down. She thought of Evans's shallow breaths, of Thompson's quiet groans, of Rivera's faith, of the commander's doubt, of the silence she had carried, the voice she had found. She thought of her brother. And for the first time since that night, she whispered, not to anyone in the bird, but to him, to the memory that haunted her. "I spoke, Daniel, I finally spoke." The words vanished into the hum of the blades, but in her chest something shifted. Not release, not freedom, but a step. Outside, the sun broke through the last of the clouds, spilling gold across a battered earth. And in that light, for a fleeting moment, there was peace. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.